The Toronto Raptors are making moves with the trade deadline just around the corner as Masai Ujiri has bolstered the front court depth, signing Orlando Robinson to a 10-day contract, but signs are indicating he might be around for longer. So we'll discuss that, including the latest updates regarding the Toronto Raptors big man, as now the Golden State Warriors are desperately interested in bringing in one of these bigs, and two Toronto Raptors have been named. So we have a lot of stuff to dive into in this video, but before we do, folks, again, if you guys are a part of the 67% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, and you want to stay up to date with everything going on with the Toronto Raptors as we enter a pretty crazy time of year with all the trades, all the veterans that are out here on this Raptors roster be thrown out there in reports and rumors. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing that's going on with this Toronto Raptors team. But we did have a move, and as we expected, this is kind of the month of the 10-day contract for the Toronto Raptors, as this team has came out from Blake Murphy, revealing that the Toronto Raptors have signed Orlando Robinson to a 10-day contract, as Omorui's 10-day contract has expired yesterday, and the Raptors now have a chance to look at Orlando Robinson with the Raptors or the Raptors 905 ahead of the post-deadline decisions on that use of that final roster spot. So this is something that we expected. This is something that we knew from Masai Ujiri coming into this kind of point of the year, as the team made some decisions, made some cuts. They got rid of Bruno Fernando, and now they had a few weeks to really bring in these 10-day contracts and see what type of young players, whether they were with the 905 like Omoruyi was, whether they're across the NBA like Orlando Robinson, who has played for the Miami Heat as well as the Sacramento Kings over the past couple of seasons, and bring them in and say, hey, are these guys a little bit better than advertised? We get a little feeler for how they look in practices games and G League games, and if they blow you away, you have an opportunity to give them a roster spot, to give them an opportunity to stay on this team long term. So is this any guarantee that Orlando Robinson's going to be a dude that's, for this squad, going to be a rotation big man for the squad immediately? No, but there are an opportunity. There is a chance, I think, greater than a lot of these 10-day contracts that he does end up sticking around with the Toronto Raptors. And looking at his stats, they're not super overwhelming. I mean, we can take a look at them here now, right? Orlando Robinson, he's 7 foot. He's been listed from 6'10" to 7 foot, depending on the outlet. Basketball Reference has put him at 7 foot, has a 7'4" wingspan. That's what I've been able to gather, been able to read. But, he's a proper sort of center big man, and he's come out and he's a very effective rim protector. He's 24 years old, hasn't gotten a ton of opportunity out there in the NBA. He's had some pretty decent seasons, especially with the Miami Heat as a backup big man. He started 7 games last season this year, but, for Sacramento this season, he was brought in to be kind of a secondary third string big man for the Kings, but started off the season very injured, and then they had a bunch of guys that the Kings brought in on like unguaranteed contracts, whether it was Jay Crowder, whether it was Doug McDermott. They also had Keon Ellis, who was a star for that team in terms of his role, came out and surprised a ton of people. So they didn't have a lot of room to maintain him, keep him on, but a lot of Kings fans actually liked him as a basketball player, but dealt with some injuries, and while he provided some extra defense, the Kings desperately needed a lot of other things beyond just rim protection, especially with Sabonis eating up a lot of the minutes at that center position. So Orlando Robinson ended up getting cut by the Kings, and he's probably a legitimate not rotation, but like NBA guy, an NBA player in terms of a backup, not like a primary big man, but has been pretty effective just being an insurance guy out there for a team. He's still super young, and he provides a ton of rim protection, which we know Masai Ujiri highly values. Again, like, it's not like his stats are blowing you off the page. 2 points per game, 1.6 rebounds, 1 assist, and 41% from the field, which is not great for an actual big man out there at this point. But of course, he can finish around the rim. He's not crazy in terms of his boost, but he blocks shots, he gets some boards, and he is just a solid, sturdy big man that does have some upside potential. Coming out of college, there were a lot of people excited about him coming in the NBA. Of course, hasn't taken the leap by any stretch, but has shown, especially with the Miami Heat, some, signs that he is a legitimate NBA player. So the Raptors now have 10 days to really evaluate Orlando Robinson, see if the Masai Ujiri looks at him as a piece that could really be on this team long term, because frankly, there are some big decisions that have to be made by Masai Ujiri in the coming weeks, in the coming stretch of, time, because the trade deadline is about 2.5 weeks away now at this point, and there are a lot of teams interested in the Toronto Raptors vets. Now, everyone knows this, that Chris Boucher, Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Davion Mitchell are all 4 guys with contracts with the veteran status and stuff that are expected to be dealt ahead of this year's trade deadline, at least command some trade interest. That's kind of what we all expect heading into this front. But things are starting to heat up a little bit out there on the trade front, the trade lines for these big men now at this point, specifically regarding Kelly Olynyk as well as Chris Boucher. As news has come out that essentially the Warriors are the main area of focus entering the trade deadline is their front court. And they have been looking at Nikola Vucevic, Jonas Valanciunas, Miles Turner, Kelly Olynyk, Chris Boucher, as well as Robert Williams and John Collins are all options that the front office has discussed. So there are two Toronto Raptors out there on this list, and two guys that are really just intriguing players to be out there ahead of this year's trade deadline. And of course, we've heard a ton of different teams interested in the Olynyks, the Chris Bouchers of the world, whether it's the Denver Nuggets, Spurs, the Lakers, all these different teams. But the Warriors have been the most consistent name brought up in these Toronto Raptors links and discussions and things along those lines. And basically, Blake Murphy also revealed something regarding the Raptors trade scenarios and what we can look at as with Omar Rui's 10-day contract wrapped, the Raptors are currently about the $10.1 million below the luxury tax line. That's an important number as it represents how much of additional salary the team could take on in a trade without dipping into the luxury tax. Again, I'm not 100% sure how Orlando Robinson's signing gets into this, but it's not going to be that significant. The Raptors roughly have about $10 million to play with entering this year's trade deadline to take on exceeding salary. Now, the Raptors, if they're sending out a Chris Boucher, a Bruce Brown, a Kelly Olynyk, you're sending out some serious money, so then you can take back even more bread in one of these trade contracts, because, of course, it doesn't make any sense in a season where we are trying to capture a flag, where we are taking L's left, right, and center to dip into the luxury tax, unless you're offered like 5 first-round picks or something ludicrous like that. But other than something crazy, just out of this world, there's no sense of the Toronto Raptors dipping into the luxury tax this year. It's not to keep, Rodgers and Bell, and Bell's not even part of the owner, but the ownership group, keep their pockets aligned. It's because if you enter the repeater tax territory, then the Raptors, once we're good again 2-3 seasons, maybe next year, who really knows, then you have a lot thinner line to play with in the NBA's cap situation, which has just gone absolutely bonkers as of late. So the Raptors have a position now to really be able to, make some moves, take in some extra money with, their current positioning heading into this year's trade deadline. We know there's proper interest in Kelly Olynyk and Chris Boucher, and the reason these bigs maybe have, the reason the Raptors bring in Orlando Robinson to have a look at him here now at this point is because there are so many reports and rumors regarding these, these guys, Kelly Olynyk and stuff. And then if Orlando Robinson impresses, if he plays really well for the Toronto Raptors here now at this point, then don't be surprised to see him, get his 10-day converted. Of course, maybe it could be a situation where Jamison Battle, who has been awesome for the Toronto Raptors this season, knocking down threes, playing his role, doing different things, maybe he gets the full-time roster spot and you throw Orlando Robinson or one of these other guys out there with a 2-way contract. Those are all things. Don't be surprised if Masai Ujiri ends up, finessing the system, getting some different things going. But, the last roster spot is open, and it doesn't make any sense for the Toronto Raptors not to fill it to close out this year, especially with a young player with decent upside. And if you get a feel from the 10-day contracts, it makes sense to really have a look. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you want to see Orlando Robinson with the team long term? Let me know what you guys think about all the trade rumors, reports, Chris Boucher, Kelly Olynyk, all these types of guys. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.